All right, we are live. We are live. We're going to give people a few moments. Get started with this intro vid. Welcome. Angela Beasley here. I am so excited that you're tuning in. We're going to get started in a moment, but as we're waiting, please like and share this live. We're live on 3 platforms: Facebook at Angela Beasley, Angie Be Creative on Instagram, and Angela Beasley 555 on YouTube. You have 3 ways to watch, like, share, and comment on tonight. It's going to be awesome. We'll get started soon. Angela Beasley is a licensed professional counselor, international speaker, singer, and creative visionary with a heart for ministry and healing. With experience spanning mental health, media, and public speaking, she empowers audiences through faith-based insight, trauma-informed care, and authentic storytelling. A former podcaster and global presenter, Angela uses her voice, both in speech and song, to inspire transformation, cultivate hope, and restore lives across cultures and communities. Phyllis Jackson is a licensed professional counselor and founder of Healing and Harmony Counseling and Wellness. With 9 years of clinical experience and a background in secondary education, she offers compassionate, evidence-based therapy to individuals, couples, and families. Drawing from her academic training, 12 years as a teacher, and her life as a mother and wife in New Orleans, Phyllis provides culturally informed, empathetic care. She is also a dedicated mental health advocate, serving with NOLA Black Mental Health Matters and speaking on panels to promote awareness and access in Black communities. Through her work, Phyllis helps clients build resilience, restore balance, and thrive emotionally. Pastor James C. Simmons Jr., or Pastor J, is a seasoned spiritual leader and elder at Greater Zionfield Family Worship Center in Westwego, Louisiana. Serving under Dr. Samuel Travis Jr., called to ministry in 1999 and licensed under Bishop Paul S. Morton, Pastor J was later ordained as an elder under Bishop Darrell S. Brister Sr., serving in various roles such as executive pastor and counselor. With over 20 years of pastoral and Christian counseling experience, he is known for his compassionate and biblically grounded guidance. Pastor J has also provided humanitarian support during major disasters, both nationally and abroad. He holds a master's in philosophy from Tulane University and is pursuing a doctorate in behavioral sciences and Christian counseling at Liberty University. A certified pastoral counselor specializing in marriage and family therapy, he also serves as a volunteer pastor at Loyola University. Pastor J is affiliated with several professional Christian counseling organizations and is a proud father and grandfather. Welcome. Angela Beasley here. I am so excited that you're tuning in. We're going to get started in a moment, but as we're waiting, please like and share this live. We're live on 3 platforms: Facebook at Angela Beasley, Angie Be Creative on Instagram, and Angela Beasley 555 on YouTube. You have 3 ways to watch, like, share, and comment on tonight. It's going to be awesome. We'll get started soon. Well, hello, y'all, and welcome. It's the month of May, number 5, right? And it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I'm so elated to come to you with another live segment, right? When I realized that Health Awareness Month was coming, I was like, I have to do something. Was so inspired. I reached out to a lot of amazing, great guests. And listen, it's time to have some serious talks. Tonight, we're talking about relationships and marriage. Y'all, I am so excited. listen, we're going to learn a lot. We're going to explore and tread on a lot of territory tonight. So I want you to make sure you share this live. As I stated, we're live here on Instagram, Angie B Creative. Just hit that share button and send it to a bunch of your friends because they want to hop in. They want to come and get this knowledge. This is good for people in relationships who want to get married, who are married, who've been divorced. It doesn't matter. The information that's going to be imparted tonight is going to be amazing. Also on Facebook, Angela Beasley, and then YouTube, Angela Beasley 555, like the month of May. So I want to get us started. I don't want to hold off too much. I'm so excited about these two guests. First and foremost, we have Phyllis Jackson, MA and LPC. A little bit about Phyllis. I met her at Holy Cross, the University of Holy Cross. We took classes together. She was always serious about her craft of counseling, and she's just a dynamic woman. I'm really proud of the things that she's doing right now with her business. She just launched Healing and Harmony Counseling and Wellness. If you want to connect with Phyllis, again, you can go to her IG at Therapy with Phyllis, and her website is healing-harmony.org. So welcome to the stage, Phyllis. Hey, girl.
Hey.
All right. I'm so excited to have you here. One more guest. Yes, girl. Yes. So one more guest we're going to pull to the stage. And his name is Pastor James Simmons, MLA, PMC, and CSM. Man, his list is long, full of accolades. The funny thing is, I'm a grader. I came up in Greater, and I was licensed and ministered as a minister at Greater too. So it's really cool to have family here. And he's going to bring the biblically sound side of counseling. So listen, there's great balance here. I want y'all to share. And we're about to get started, y'all. So the reason why we're doing this, right? The purpose of Mental Health Awareness Month, which is observed every May, is one, to increase awareness, reduce stigma, promote mental wellness, support access to care, and then empower individuals. And again, tonight, y'all are the professionals. This is your lane. I want y'all to shine with the information that you've imparted and the experience that you have regarding marriage and relationships. So here's the first question. And it's for Pastor James C. Simmons.
Hey.
So when I saw, because we connected on a media tip, right?
Right, we did.
But I saw that you had pastoral counseling. I was like, right. What is this? Right. I heard of Christian counseling,
right,
but never pastoral counseling.
Right.
So I want you to touch on what's the difference between your style of counseling, which incorporates biblically sound backing, and then secular counseling.
You know, Angela, thank you so much. Everybody knows I call Angela. That's my little cousin. You know, because my family's a Beasley as well. So yes, we connected from the very beginning, and through ministry, and I'm so appreciative for the connection that we've had. And but there's I get that question a lot, Angela, because I think there's in some cases it can be some confusion, is because when most people think about Christian counseling, they think about, when you're Catholic and you go into that little room and you say, hey, this is what's going on with me. And there's a little wall between you and a priest, I guess. And that's actually not exactly what it is. It's counseling no different than the type of counseling that you would get, again, what we call secular counseling, except that it is foundationally biblically based. Okay. I like to call myself, I'm a hope dealer, right? Okay. Right. I mean, I offer hope, and, I'm not going to tell you to go say 3 Hail Marys and you're going to be good. No, I'm going to put those those coping strategies and things that come into place. We use a lot of EMT, and we use a lot of those things like that to try to make sure the different forms of therapy that's used, but it's integrated with biblically sound scriptures. You know, like, so when you talk about marriage, of course, we use a lot of Ephesians 5 and kind of integrate that of how does Christ see the man, how does Christ see the wife, you know, those kind of things like that. The Bible says that when a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing, right?
Yeah.
But the thing to understand is that when a man has to find, she has to be a wife. Wife is not a title, is not a position. Wife is a characteristic.
Wow.
Right. So what happens is that is something that when I find you, it is already something on the inside of you. So, those are things that I kind of bring into, and I said, listen, do you know what a wife is? And then oftentimes you got to break down those things if they've experienced some type of trauma based off of their childhood, or even if they're divorced and they're looking to get remarried. So sometimes you got to tear down walls, but you do it from a position and a posture of hope, and of course, in sympathetic counseling, and offer those tools that's something they could take with them. Right. So we use a lot of emotional therapy that goes along with it, to allow them anxiety therapy. But then I'm going to pray with you along with it. So very similar to what your secular counselor may do every day.
Okay. So it's an added layer or component of spirituality added into the counseling.
Right. Right. Again, I'm a hope dealer. And one of the things, like I said, at Loyola, they have a university counseling center. There's several counselors up there, and I'm kind of connected to them, but I'm connected to the student life and ministry side, to where, hey, listen, if you want to talk about your relationship with God, or you have some issues or concerns, I can it's almost like I can do both. Right. But at the same time, though, I can give you hope by having a relationship with Jesus Christ at the same time.
I love that. I find that I hold similar beliefs as you, but I find that I don't have the liberty to express those things in the room. And my job is to be the professional to allow people to come to me. And I'm not in a place where I push my beliefs on anyone. But if they open the door, then I'm allowed to express those things with my clients. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes. I love it. I love everything about it. Particularly when it comes down to relationships, my emphasis is twofold. It's actually marriage and family therapy, but it's also traumatology. Right. So I spend a lot of time dealing with, because you got to break through the trauma to get to the marriage and family side.
Yeah.
Right. So I just want to. That's why my emphasis in my study is actually in a combination of both marriage and family and traumatology.
That's awesome.
Right.
I'm listening. This conversation is going to be good, but I want to shift over to Phyllis. Hey, girl.
Hi.
Hi. That is my Holy Cross sister. We went through the program, but Phyllis chose a different track. Phyllis, I want you to tell the people what made you choose marriage and family counseling.
Mm-hmm. A long time ago, I worked in MHR as a mental health rehabilitation, and I got pulled into doing functional family therapy, which is an evidence-based model similar to MHR, where you go into the homes, but instead of working with just the child or the individual, you would work with the entire family system. And so doing that, I became super interested in just the family systems, and really learned that by working with the family or the couple, or whoever the group, right, that I could be more impactful than just working with the individual and sending them back into the same environment. So instead of just healing the individual, we get to heal the system, which impacts functioning throughout the entire family. So yeah, and then of course with my own just life experience and everything, I just felt very called to this. And as you know, like I had it in my mind, like, yeah, I'm gonna do marriage and family. But once I got into the program, it was like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. Instructors being like, this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Like, you just feel very called. Like, I know that this is my purpose. While I do work with individuals, of course, that's my focus.
I love that, Phyllis. And you use a key word when I describe what I do. I feel connected and called. We can't do this without feeling connected and called to what we do on a
Absolutely.
daily basis.
Right.
So thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing that. Well, listen, y'all. Let's hop in. Y'all ready?
We're ready.
Yeah, let's get to
Let's
these
go.
these questions.
So I want to ask the
Right.
first question. Let's say we're dating, we're courting, we're in that process. How do you know if someone is the right partner for you?
Oh
How
wow.
would I know if someone is the right person for me?
Right. Right. How do you know that person's the right partner?
Yeah.
You know, I will tell you what I will tell you one way, if you don't mind, Ms. Jackson. What I will say one way is, you heard the term people say follow your heart.
Hmm.
I would always say follow your mind, right?
Hmm.
Follow what you hear,
Mm.
follow what you see, right? I would, like I said, I'm a man of two daughters. I have 19 nieces, four sisters. Follow what you hear, right? Like I said, and because what happens is one thing about your heart will make sure that you don't see that flashy red light at the end of the road. Your heart allow those things to be blurry,
Yeah.
but you know, uh, follow what your ears say, and then allow that to incorporate what your heart feels, right? Because oftentimes people will tell you who they are, and don't shift your boundaries. I
Yeah.
said it all the time. Don't shift your boundaries. If you know what your boundaries are, stick fast and hold fast to your boundaries, and then let them, not that they have to fit into a box, but hold on to those boundaries, those things, and as you compromise some things, but also whether you're going to sacrifice some things. So, how do you know? What does my ears tell me? What does my heart tells me? People talk about love languages. All those things matter, uh, and then you kind of incorporate your heart. The Bible said that your heart could be foolish, right? So you want to make sure you incorporate all those senses in it, other than just oh, I think I love them. Oh my God, I think I love her. And then all of a sudden, times pass and you realize that what, I need more than just love,
Yeah. You
right?
definitely have to have a balance between, like you said, emotion and logic, right?
Right.
Because both of those are equally important. When dating someone, you can become chemically bonded to them,
Right.
chemistry, right? So you feel pulled, you feel close, all of those things, and that can cause you to miss all of the red flags. So one thing that I definitely promote is to slow down. I give
Yeah.
this metaphor of like you're driving to a destination. A destination is relationship, if that's the goal, right? But if you're going 100, you're missing all of the stop signs, the yellow
Right.
signs, the yield sign, the exit signs. Like
Right.
you missing it
The
because you just
exercise. Yeah.
going, right? So
Right.
you got to like take your foot off the gas and take time to really experience the person.
Right.
I was actually, this is funny, a few weeks ago I did a news panel discussion on this very topic. And so in my research, I found this therapist, I can't remember her name, but she shared this acronym called RISES. And it
Okay.
was very interesting
Right.
because she was saying you want your relationship to rise, not fall. And
Mm.
so the R was for recreation, like are you aligned recreationally? The first one was intellectual compatibility. So all of these were intimacy. So do you connect recreational intimacy, intellectual intimacy, spiritual intimacy, emotional intimacy, and then sexual intimacy? So do you have all those levels of intimacy, and are you aligned in those areas? And of course, it matters like what's important, right? So maybe recreation isn't an important area to me. Well,
Right.
then you want to be with somebody who feels the same. But if you have somebody that, really enjoys being outgoing, just traveling, and you have somebody that's a stay-at-home bookworm,
Yeah.
that can be hard. If you
Right.
have somebody that's super interested in, like, has very intense feelings about psychology or the world or
Right.
spirituality or, politics, then you want somebody that you can share those things with. So
Right.
yeah, I thought that was a really cool acronym that she shared.
Right.
I
Right.
love that. I really do.
I like that. I wrote that down.
I did
I
too
wrote
when I
that down.
saw it. Yeah, I was like,
Right.
stealing.
Right. Yeah, right. Right. Hey, look, that's how we learn from each other,
That's
right?
how we learn. We learn from
Absolutely.
each other. Yeah.
Learn,
That's how
sharpen
we
iron.
learn and grow.
Right.
All right, y'all. Next question. What are the signs of a healthy versus toxic relationship?
Oh, wow. You know, if there's anything that I think about was, you know, when you think about feeling, to me, if you think about toxic versus healthy, you know, healthy is open communication, respect, you know, you have that emotional safety. Oh my God, trust, right? Clear boundaries, you know, do you feel supported, right? Because sometimes we have this new thing that's out there now is that, you know, my energy is attracted to you. No, you better open your ears. You know, you better open your eyes and see, you know, because you know that how I'm attracted to you. And you know, if you're an affectionate person, but that person's not, and that matters to you, you know, those things are allowed to be healthy. But what is toxic, right? Jealousy, someone's controlling, you know, narcissism. You know, we got to look these things up. You know, we think they're disrespectful in some kind of way. You know, they maybe, you know, a little sharp tongue. You know, be like, oh, that's cute. No, it's cute today. You know, but tomorrow it feels disrespectful, right? So the difference between toxic and healthy is that you know that it's open communication, it's respectful. You know, there's dialogue. There's you know there's you feel supported. You know, you in most cases, of course, you feel led. You know, but if it feels one sided, if it feels like you're not being heard, because you know if gaslighting. Oh my God, we could do a whole segment just on gaslighting, right? You know, at least I look. At least I know I can. You know, because we all can be gaslighted, right? Regardless of male or female, we all can be gaslighted. So just identify some of those things again. You know, Google it. What is a narcissist? You can Google that. You know, and say, okay, yeah, that's a sign of some narcissism here. And guess what? If they're toxic, don't always think that you can fix somebody and get them to transition over to being healthy.
Oh, no.
Right. You know, don't be, you know, you're not Mr. Fix It. You know, you just, you know, take it for face value, you know, surface level. You know, so there's a huge difference between toxic and being healthy in a relationship. Yes. Yes.
That's so good.
Yeah.
If it doesn't feel right, it's not right.
Right.
That part. I was about to say, in order to simplify this, I think of it just like healthy is peace and safety,
That's it.
and toxic is chaos and danger.
Right.
Just
Right.
simplify that, right? If I feel peace, of course, we know we're not gonna feel peace every single day, right?
Right. Right.
But the
Right.
majority of the time, do you feel peace in your relationship? Is it harmonious? Do you
Right.
feel cared for? Is your heart feeling cared for? Do you feel safe emotionally, physically, all of that, right? Then that's healthy. But if you are in constant fight mode, survival mode in your relationship, then that is when you know it's toxic.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, y'all are cooking.
Right. But you know the weird part about it is that, you know, the difference is, and I want to just kind of caveat on Ms. Jackson, is that sometimes your butterflies is anxiety. you know, anxiety and butterflies feel like the same thing. And you think you got butterflies. Oh, no, that's anxiety. That means that person that you're interacting with is stressing you out on the inside.
Your nervous system trying to tell you something.
Yeah, and you think it's butterflies. No, it's not butterflies. It's anxiety, right? And then what happens is you begin to identify that after you've engaged with that person and you have time with them, and you say, okay, no, that wasn't butterflies. That was the anxiety that you were experiencing. So those are the kind of things you want to be able to look to in the differences, because, like I said, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing at all. No, not at all.
Okay. I'm gonna shift this a little bit. Let's say we're deep in love in a relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. How do one not lose their identity in a relationship?
Keep your autonomy.
Right.
You
Don't
know,
give it
I
away.
promote
Don't give it away.
autonomy. You have to
Right.
have your
Right.
individuality, right?
Right.
Yes, you get into a relationship and you do merge. Like I always tell
Right.
people, we codependent is a bad
Right.
word, right? But
Right.
however, if we really are honest, there is a healthy level of codependency in a relationship, right?
Right.
We do depend on each other
Right.
in ways, emotional ways, right?
Right.
But yeah, if I'm gonna let you go ahead, pick up. Because I
Oh,
saw you got to jump. Go ahead.
well, because I mean, you know what you like. You know what you like
Mm-hmm.
to do, right? You know what you like to do. This is, how I identify myself. I know what my personal goals are. Guess what? When you get married or when you get into a relationship, your goals should not have to shift, right? Your goals should have to. If I meet somebody tomorrow and man, they seem awesome, but they say, man, you spending too much time in class, I'm exiting left. No, because my goal is to finish this degree, right?
Yeah.
So, to advance myself and things like that. If that's how I keep my identity. This is who I am. Again, setting boundaries. You got hobbies, you got things that you want to do. If you're a fitness person, but they, sitting on the couch doesn't mean that you have to start sitting on the couch, right? If you like to go work out to the gym 3 times a week, that's your identity. I identify myself as someone who eat well, who exercises, and that's who I am. I don't want to lose that. Don't lose yourself, right?
Yeah.
Of course, the Bible says that that a man and a woman cleave to one another. That does not mean you lose yours. I spend the most time talking about that in counseling. Is that cleaving as one does not mean that you lose yourself. Right? It does not. It does not mean that you lose yourself. That's not what God intended it to be. It's for Him to be able to see you as one. Doesn't mean that you always have to operate as one. Right. So that's the distinct difference. So you want to keep your identity and maintain who you are.
I love this. So there is a healthy level of meshing or connecting, or we're calling it healthy codependency, but keep your identity.
Keep
Right.
your identity.
That's
Keep
so
it, it should look like that overlaps in what was that, the Venn diagram,
Right.
yes,
right?
Right.
It should look like that. Like, yes, there is merging, but on the outside, there are parts of us that are
Right.
completely separate. You should, again, you should not have to change or shift your identity, those
Right.
things that are important to you and that are of value to you in order
Right.
to be in a relationship.
Right.
You have your own interests, friends, hobbies,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
separate time. You don't have to
Right.
spend all your time together.
Right.
If someone is trying to isolate you or take all of your time and all of your
Right.
energy and they want to, that's possession.
That's right.
So you don't want to be in a relationship where you morph into someone else or you assimilate to become
Right.
the person that person is or
Right.
that they want you to become.
That's right. I like that. That is so true. That is so true because, like I said, there's something about who you are that attracted you to me anyway. So what
Yeah.
happens when you lose that? So people ask, okay, why is my relationship fading away? You lost yourself. The thing that was attracted that attracted me to you is fading away, right? Because you kind of like I said, you lose an identity. There's some things about you meet someone that I like about you. I like that about you. I like that you do this. I like that you do that. So what happens when you stop doing those things, right?
Mhm.
Then what happens? That's where you have the disconnect, right? I want you to be who you are, because those are things that are about you is what I like. I like those things about you, and be truthful about it oftentimes.
That's so good, y'all. Okay, so let's shift a little bit. I want to know, how do we set healthy boundaries? I think we touched down on it, and I heard the B word thrown around, the good B word, boundaries, right?
Right,
Let me be clear. But how do we set boundaries in relationships?
Communicate them,
right,
be clear, communicate. You have to constantly talk about it and
right,
communicate about it. You have to be assertive in relationships. You say what you want, you say what you need, you say what you think, and you set those expectations, especially when you are entering into a new relationship. Like you have your rules, your expectations, you have your things that are important to you, and you don't bend those things to be in a relationship, right?
right.
Because you can do it in the beginning, but over time, resentment grows.
Right.
So that's not a healthy thing to do. And
Right.
as boundaries change, I've been married 15 years and my husband for 18 years. My boundaries have changed as I've grown, right? The person that I was when we met at 20 is not the person that I am today.
Right.
So constantly being in communication about how we're changing and what we need, our new needs or our
Right.
changing needs. We're
Right.
constantly evolving,
Right. Right. But one of the things about like what you just said is that when you have boundaries, one of the things that I've seen again in my study and through my counseling is stay consistent. If you stay consistent in your boundaries, right? How do you lose being able to communicate with someone? Is that when they don't understand what you're saying? Stay consistent in what those boundaries are. Stay consistent in what matters, right? If you vacillate too much, then guess what? I can't keep up, right? You like this one day, but you don't like this that day, right? Just stay consistent, because if it's not consistent, it's not a boundary, right? So you want to stay consistent in with those things. But even if it comes down, one thing about boundaries always says, I tell people, and I'm sure you guys do that too as counselors as well, write these things down. I need you to see what I like and what I don't like. I need you to see what matters to me and what doesn't matter. Red, yellow, green, right? This is what I'm doing. I'm telling you this is what matters to me, what's important to me. It's kind of like, Ms. Jackson said, we could be flexible on some things, obviously, right? We grow and we change and we morph, but just be consistent and communicate these things. The whole simple as pros, cons. We need to write these things down so you can see, put them on a refrigerator, put them on a mirror. These are things that matter to me. And like I said before, but I think you kind of bumping up against them a little bit, then let's talk, right? Don't use your nonverbal cues, right, to indicate that I don't like what you're doing. Nope, I need you to communicate with me, right? Don't all of a sudden be passive aggressive because you're on those boundaries. How would I know? How would I know that I'm about to cross that line if you don't communicate that with me, and you being consistent with it. So I think boundaries are probably one of the most healthiest things in a relationship that you can possibly have. Know where the lines are.
Okay. Yeah. I have one more question for General before we hop on to another section, right?
Okay.
How can I tell if I'm truly in love or just infatuated?
Oh, wow. I mean, I can answer that and try not to be overly spiritual, right? And I always say this, love is a light switch, not a dimmer. Love is all or nothing, right? So can I give you an analogy that I use in counseling all the time? Yeah. So if I've been driving since I was 16 and now I'm 30, and since I was 16, I came to a stop sign. I didn't fully stop, but I just kept going through it. We call it the California roll, right? Or yielding. Then you begin to believe that when a policeman pull you over and says, I need to write you a ticket for running a stop sign, you will never believe that you ran a stop sign because you've been operating in that way for so long. But actually, by definition, stops means the energy has been exhausted. That's what stops mean. So when I love you, it doesn't come with limitations. It doesn't come with anything. Infatuation fades. Yeah, it fades. And God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. He guess what? His Son died. So guess what? That's the ultimate example of love. And we kind of use it as a demonstration. I kind of love you today, but I don't love you as much. No, either you love someone, and most people disagree with this. Either you love someone or you don't. Anything that you don't doesn't mean that you don't like them strongly or that you're not infatuated. But when you come down to love, to me, it's an all or nothing. To death do your part in sickness and in health, right? If you get sick, I'm bouncing, right? You know what? Things get tough financially, I'm bouncing. Guess what? You never, ever, ever, you weren't in love. You were in strong light or strong infatuation. You can hang on to that love thing. You can hang it on because, like I said, there's this distinct difference. Infatuation kind of like you idolize that person, or you see them just on the outside. The emotions are extreme, but love is stable. Love is secure, right? love grows over time. It strengthens, right? And it's just, it's just a distinct difference. Infatuation is a flash in the pan.
Mm.
It's a flash in the pan. And love is just strength and strong and endurance. Never fails. It is long suffering. I can give you, but that's just how I feel about it. Transparency. As a man who lost a wife,
Mhm.
I could tell you that's what I learned that through that transition. This is love.
Yeah.
Right? You know what? Yep, you go from 145 pounds to 90. I loved you at 145, and I love you ill at 90.
Wow.
Right, and I love you in between. Right, so infatuation, like, oh man, you sick. No, I learned that love is all or nothing through trial and experience.
Wow.
And you just have to know what that is, right?
A steady love, a solid love, man.
Solid, rock solid,
Mhm.
rock solid,
Yeah, rock solid. I definitely agree with truly everything you said. Especially infatuation is just admiration. It's
Right.
interest. And a lot of times I listen to people and we often ask, like, why do you love me? Or why do you love this person? Right. And I listen for the answer, right? Or even in proposals or vows, listen to the answer. And when I find a person is very focused on self, like, you do this for me. You've done this for me. This is how you've grown me. This is how you've loved me. This is how you I'm like, okay, you are infatuated. You
Right.
admire what this person, who this person is to you and for you, right? Love is, what do you love about that person? It's not selfish, right? It
Yeah.
is characteristics about that particular person. You
Right.
are this person, not what you're doing for me or how you've changed my life and all that. Not to say that's not a part of a relationship, but oftentimes when you listen to why do you love somebody, you'll find that that's the answer. They answer based on what the person is able to do for them.
Oh, wow. Wow. Because I always say this. I always say love is a very selfish emotion.
Mm.
And I say that because I can love you, but you don't have to love me back.
Mm.
Right? It's selfish, meaning that I know I love you. That's why you have stalkers and all that stuff like that. Because it's selfish in a sense that I can love you, but you don't love me. But when even how you project that love doesn't change the definition of it.
Mm.
It just doesn't change the definition of it. So either it's just, like I said, it's just so rock steady. It's solid. It endures. It overcomes. No, I'm not leaving you because you left the toilet seat up. Right. We're going to get you to train you how to put this toilet seat down because I love you and you love me. Right? We're going to adjust it. We're going to figure this thing out. Love doesn't. You don't leave at the drop of a dime over something else. Love it. Like I said, love just endures.
Yeah, you're not easily exhausted. Like you don't easily.
Ms. Jackson, you got me. I'm I mean, this is a learning for all of us, right? So
absolutely.
I love it. I do.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, y'all. Oh my goodness, this is so good. This is so good. I feel like people who are watching are checking their meter of love. Do I truly love with my heart, with my being, with maybe a biblical love or a true love, or is my love superficial? So this is good.
Can I add one more thing, Ange? Can I add one more thing? You can never love someone else unless you love yourself. You just can't do it. It don't. Like I said, with all of my my New Orleans language, it don't go together. It don't go together. It don't go together. If you don't love yourself, how do you even know what it feels like to love someone else? If you don't love yourself, once you love yourself, then you know how to give it away. You know how to give it away. You know how to operate in that space, right? But you got to love yourself first.
Yeah. And then that lends to, being in a healthy relationship, because when you love yourself, then you're going to honor yourself. You won't dishonor yourself.
Yes.
You will love yourself in a relationship, right?
Yes.
So you won't be in a relationship where it makes you dishonor and not love
Right.
yourself and not treat yourself well. So that's
Right.
another sign of a healthy relationship or
Right.
a toxic one.
Right. Ooh, honor is good. Ooh, we can talk about honor, gaslighting. You got to bring me and Miss Jackson back. I'm sorry.
Oh, y'all are y'all have no choice. Y'all are coming back. Okay, so I really want to stay here with the before we're in love, we're in a relationship, we're courting, we're dating, we are in love, but now you propose to me, right?
Okay.
So now I have a ring and we're working towards forever.
Okay.
What conversation should we have before getting married?
A whole bunch of whole premarital checklist we go through.
Who your people? I want to know who your people are. What's your mom and them? I need to know. We can always go there, right? Who your mom and them? Where you from? That kind of thing, like that. But asking the questions are of where are you? You said this is after I've given you the ring, right?
Yeah, we're engaged now.
Oh, we're engaged. So this means that. And give me the question again. How do I know?
Yeah, what conversation should we have before getting married?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we can get into it. Like I said, some of the things. Look, and this may not be a comfortable subject, man. What's your credit score?
Finances.
Do you owe any money? Are you behind on your taxes? Mm-hmm. I need to know this because guess what? And I always say this towards my female clients is that guess what? You're going to give him your name and your credit score, right? So
security number and all.
You're going to take his name and you're going to take his credit score, right? That's the biggest thing when I look at it. Yeah, you in love, you got the butterflies, but you need to be prepared that you're going to take his name and you may have to take his credit score, right? So you have to look at some of those things because if you don't look at it in the beginning, man, I guarantee you if it's not covered in premarital counseling, we're going to cover it in marital counseling because you didn't ask it. It wasn't asked or it wasn't determined in the premarital, right? Finances and things of that nature. I would say this is just the tangibles versus the intangibles, right? You got to ask these. You got to focus on these tangible things, right? Because these intangible things, yes, I know how I feel. I know how you make me feel. I know, your goals, but what are the intangibles? Let's talk about some of these intangible things. Let's talk about your finances. Let's talk about, sexual partners. Let's talk about, all of these things, right? All these tangible things that this marriage is gonna have to stand on when things go a little bit to the left.
Yeah. Your marriage has to logistically work, right? Yeah. It is it runs like a business. It's funny. I call my husband the CEO and I'm the COO. We have our roles, right? But it logistically, it has to work. It has to function, right? So outside of feeling, it has to function. So we're talking about finances. We're talking about romance and intimacy, not just sexual intimacy, but intimacy. Period. Right. We're talking about combining families and what that looks like. Maybe it's important to y'all, maybe it's not. But how is it in balance? How do we put these families together? You want to talk about family planning. What is your idea? What do you want as far as building a family? You want to talk about long-term goals. Where do you see yourself? What do you see your family developing? Are you in alignment there? Do you have somebody that's, complacent and fine where they are? You have somebody that's super ambitious and sees themselves reaching the moon. That's not alignment. That's going to cause, friction. So many conversations that I think that people don't talk about, and it's the foundation. You have to build a steady foundation for the house.
Right. How do you resolve conflict? Right.
Yes.
Because 90% of the time it's not the conflict, it's how you respond to the conflict. Right. Because you can look at conflicts and let's talk about this. I didn't like the way you made me feel like this. And again, nonverbal cues, how you respond to me. You
Mhm.
know, are you a yeller? Does your voice go high? You know, that kind of thing like that. Because, you know, oftentimes when you talk about couples, I operate at a 2. But if you go to 6, I'm probably going to go to 7. Right? I live at 2. I promise you, I live at 2. Right? How do you resolve that conflict? You know, how do you? Because it's not necessarily. It's one of those things that, you know, you have a conflict, you have an issue, and then it becomes less about the issue and more about how you responded to the issue.
Oh,
And then we're not
yes,
talking about,
absolutely.
you know, we're not talking about, you know, what you did now. We're talking about how you responded to what you did. Right?
Absolutely.
That kind of thing like that. So I need to know how you, or do you get angry? I need to know who you are when you angry.
Ooh.
That's what I need to
That
know.
part. I
You
saw
know,
somebody in the comment just say a lot of these discussions need to be had before marriage. Absolutely right. Before you,
right,
I mean, before you even get engaged, you know.
right,
What are your triggers? What's your trauma? How did you grow up?
right,
Tell me your background. Tell me your past
right,
relationship
right,
experiences. Tell
right,
me, you know, what's your mental health like? Are you taking
right,
care of it? Like
right.
these are important conversations.
Right, right. And, you know, the thing about it is, though, is when you think about engagement, you know, we see all the things on social media. He got on one knee, you know, all the flowers, all the families in the background. I'll tell you, I tell my male friends and I tell my male clients, you could do that if you want to, because if she says no, it could be not at that moment, right? Because I'm still getting to know you. I'm not saying that I don't care. I'm not saying that my future, I don't see you in my future. But, you know, I'm still getting to know you. There's some questions that need to be answered, right? And that's okay, you know. So if you decide to put yourself out there and she still have questions that, you know, to try to come through and figure out, you know, then you kind of put yourself out there. So the conversation and asking the right questions, you know, and how do you deal with this? Like I said, you know, how do you act when you get mad? You know, I'm one of those guys. I don't get mad. I'm not a person that's not an emotion that I have, right? I get disappointed. I may get hurt, but anger is not my emotion, right? So if you ask me, I'm gonna say anger is not my emotion. I get hurt, you know, I may get reserved, but there won't be any, you know, knocking everything off the table. There won't be slamming of any doors. It's not my character. So you want to ask, hey, how do you act when, you know, when things don't go right? What are you going to do? You know, how did that hole get in the wall? Let me tell you what happened. Right? Red flags, right? A hole in the wall is a hole in the door
A red
is a
flag.
red flag. It's a red flag.
I have a question.
Good.
I often think about this. Should getting engaged be a discussion before the engagement happens? Like sometimes I'm like, you know, surprised. Like, do we y'all didn't
Right,
talk about that y'all getting ready for getting close to this space, or y'all are getting ready for
right,
marriage, or y'all ready, like somebody just popped up and said, all right, I'm ready,
right.
but you don't know if the other person is ready. So I'm curious, like, what are y'all thoughts on surprise engagements versus talked about? Not to say you know exactly what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, or whatever, but we have been talking about the next step. We have been talking about getting ready for marriage. We have been preparing for the next step. We know that next step is coming. I'm just curious. What are your thoughts?
I have a thought. So oftentimes when you're with the person, most of the time, if the guy is serious and he's mature, he's going to state his intent that
Right,
he wants to.
right,
This has an end goal, right?
Yes.
And that's the difference between dating and courting, right? Courting is essentially, I want to marry you. Dating is, we're going to see where this is going to go. We don't know where it's going to go.
You're dating with a purpose, right? You're dating
Dating
with a
with
purpose.
purpose,
Dating
exactly.
with a purpose.
So I feel like in that case, it depends on who you are dealing with. Essentially, if he's a guy who's expressed, I'm serious about you, I don't want to just play around, then I feel like essentially you should expect, but that's a caveat too, because it may not always end that way, but you can possibly expect
Right.
it to end in engagement.
Well, and more mature couples are going to talk about these things, right? When you get married at 25 and, you know, that kind of thing like that, you, like I said, you're following your heart. But listen, when you get to my age and you get to a mature state, I got questions. You know, I got questions, and you know, and we know the intent, right? But this is the intent. We're going to marry for a purpose, you know, and we're going to court for a purpose. We're going to date for a purpose, you know. And usually you can tell right? What somebody's intent is. Gone are the days where I take you to a jeweler and you find a ring and we decide, hey, this is the ring you want. And because we made a decision to get married together. We made a decision, right? Not on the spot. We made a collective decision to say, you know what? Let's get married. Because oftentimes if you have a long relationship, when you get to a certain point, you feel as if that you have to get married because we've been together so long. And those are the ones that I talk to the most. We were together so long. And Ms. Jackson, like I said, you're a unicorn. I love it. You guys dated 3 years. You've been married 15. Man, yeah, I got people I'm going to send your way and go, hey, you've been dating, now you feel as if, guess what? I have to get married because we've been together so long, right? And then you got to throw in, if you have kids together, the reality of the 21st century. Do you have kids? Do you have kids together? Do you have kids outside? That kind of thing like that.
Add parenting onto what we all need to talk about when engaged. Yes, right. Parenting.
Right. You gotta add parenting to those kind of things. So it's just, you gotta have the conversation about it. Right. That's all. That's how I feel about it.
Okay. I have one more question for pre-marriage or premarital, right?
Okay.
How do I know if we're ready for marriage? How do I know?
Because you've gotten premarital counseling.
Okay.
I need a license. I need a license to drive. I need a license to hunt. I need a license to fish. Which means that they have to determine I know how to do these things. I know how to drive a boat safely before you give me, a boating license. Do you have all the equipment? Do you have a life preserver in there? Do you have a flare gun? You need to make sure that you know what you're doing before you get into it. Of course, I'm a huge advocate in premarital. That is probably 90% of the counseling that I do. You bring these things. Mine is a 10-week session, an hour and a half per. I give them, this is the wedding date. We're going to count back 10 weeks. We're going to count back 10 weeks, and that's when we're going to start, usually like 2 weeks before, and we're going to go through that. You have to learn. Because you got the tools to know how to navigate it, right? You know what to use, how to interact. You got to have that premarital counseling. You got to, if you've never been married, I need to show you how to be married, right? Through eyes of God. But if you've been married, I need to figure out some kind of way that I need to let you know that wasn't it, that there's some things that you didn't do correctly, or it wasn't what it was intended to be. And you got to break down those walls. So it's just the counseling piece. The premarital counseling is key. I don't marry people, by the way. I don't marry individuals that I don't pre-counsel.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't do that.
Do you have anything to add, Phyllis?
I would just say overall, making sure that you are ready for the role of husband and the role of a wife, because those are responsibilities, right? So, and I tell my couples all the time, of course, I'm a secular therapist, so a little bit different than Christian counseling, right? I'm telling them that there's no right or wrong way to put this thing together. You create your own blueprint. As long as it is mutually beneficial, you guys are on the same page. Everyone's, there's a balance of needs being met. You create the blueprint. So are you ready to step into that role of expectations for yourself and for your partner?
Right. And it kind of goes back to, what we talked about earlier, right? When the Bible says when a man finds a wife, guess what? When I find you, that you're already a wife. It's a characteristic, right? It's not a position. It's not a title. It's already inside of you. And, in contrast, on the spiritual side is that I use a lot of Ephesians 5, and the Bible says that you're supposed to love your wife as Christ loved the church. If you don't have an understanding of how Christ loved the church, then you're not going to know how to love your wife. So sometimes I got to take a whole session, and I call it mirror image, right? And because what it feels like, I'm just talking to the man for that whole session. And then I may do another session. I'm just talking to the woman about her role, right? Because oftentimes they don't know. The only roles that they know is what they've seen, what they've heard, what their friends told you, or what they've experienced through through a growing up environment. So, do you know what it means? Yeah, I love the Lord because I got to start with that. And then it says, it goes on to Ephesians 5:25 that a man loves her husband, and it says in everything. And in everything, when I hit them with that in everything, they go, no, I say that, that's a period, not a comma, right? In everything. And you go, what does that mean in everything? Right? I mean, if he does this, he does that, he does this and does that. If he does these things, then don't marry him. Because you don't have to accept the everything, right? And until if I'm not married to you, it says husband, wife in Ephesians 5. That in you love your husband in everything. Your husband, not your boo, not your, not your fiance, not your girlfriend. Because come a husband is then when you give them in everything. Right? Is when that role, like I said, just like a wife, a husband is a characteristic, right? That it's in you, it's who you are. You can't make somebody a husband or make somebody a wife.
Oh,
well, how do you become one? Like, how do I gain this characteristic?
You gain the characteristics by having the tools of knowing, again, how does God see me in the role I'm supposed to play? Right? When a wife means that I understand in everything, right? If I'm sick, if I'm having financial deficiencies at that moment, it's in everything. It doesn't mean that you have to endure abuse, right? It just means that I'm going to love you in everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, and we're going to work this thing out. We're going to come together. But what does it mean that for a man to love his wife as Christ loved the church? I'm gonna give my life for you. And it says, he says, how do you love Christ? Because he gave his life for the church. Which means, and guess what? When I give my life as a husband, doesn't necessarily mean physically give my life. It can be I'm giving my life, my emotions. I'm setting something. I'm giving you these things of who I am, because I want to lay these. I want to die to some things. Right? I'm going to die to anger. I'm going to die to this. I'm going to die to those things. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to love you like Christ loved the church, that he gave his life for it. Right? So which means I may have to die to some things. Which means that before she gives me, before I'm going to love you in everything, because that comes first. It tells about what the husband's supposed to do first in 5:23. Right? Then it goes and say in 5:25 in everything, which means that once he's exhibited these things, he's died to some things. Guess what I can do? I can give you in everything. Right? I'm not asking you don't give it someone in everything, and then I learn how to die. No, you die from these things, right? As Christ loved the church, I'm dying to some things. Guess what? Now I can go. You know what? I can love you in everything because you've died. You laid some things on the altar. And that's usually how you know the difference between how I am as a wife and how I am as a husband, as a characteristic, not as a title or a role, right? Is that I understand that I got to die for you. Emotionally, physically, I got to lay some things on the altar and leave some things behind, and that's one of the things you got to be willing to be able to do. If they're not willing to do those things, then they don't have the characteristic.
Wow. That was a great question. What we do?
So goofy.
I my foolishness tonight.
That's funny.
So now we're gonna shift. All right. So we've courted, we went through the premarital stages, and now we made it to the altar. And now we're down the road a few years, and I have a clip that I'm gonna play. Listen, I'm gonna share this story quickly. So God is so intentional. Yesterday, I'm on this little different eating kick, and I wanted to go to Sam's to get some yogurt and apples, but Sam's was closed because of the weather, y'all. So I ended up going to like a gas station to put some air in my tires. And while I was putting air in my tires, an old friend that I used to go to church with pulled up on me. I don't know how he saw me, but it was intentional. I was supposed to be in Sam's. We end up having this conversation about marriage and trials that people go through marriage. And he led me to this clip. He shared this clip with me. It's from the podcast, Dear Future Wifey. I'm going to play it, and then we're going to discuss. I have a question for y'all about it. So let's hop on into it.
It was right in COVID. I just looked at my wife and I was like, do you like me? And she said, no. And she was like, do you like me? And I was like, no. And then I looked at her, I said, what are we supposed to do with that? And she was like, well, you're supposed to be the leader, so why don't you make it? And I was like, oh, so now you want me to, so now argument, I'm sorry. We got two options. Either we can get a divorce or we can relearn each other, because nobody taught us in premarital that we will grow and evolve as people. The person I married is not the same person that's sitting here with me right now.
Welcome to Dear Future Wifey Podcast. My homies, Cornelius and Heather. Lindsay is in the building.
Wow.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
So listen, I think this is going to open up a discussion, and we're going to possibly park here. We'll see. But what happens when two people begin to evolve within that marriage, right? And discover that they don't really like each other. They don't like the who that they married.
Oh, wow. This is how I feel about this. And again, this may not be the most popular answer, but if I just believe that if you don't like me later, you probably really didn't like me in the beginning, and what happens is those things, again, we talked about red flags, right? You just ignored the red flags. And now all of a sudden, over time, the blinders are coming off because it was always there.
Wow.
You have blinders on. And all of a sudden, because I would say this, and I would be remiss if I didn't add this like this. It's not that you don't like me, you don't like the things that I do. Right? You don't like the things that I do. I was always there. I've evolved, I've grown, but I don't grow into anger. I don't grow. That was there. You just missed it. Right? I don't grow into selfishness. That selfishness was always there. You just missed it. So the thing that you don't like, chances are they were already there, but you just kind of overlooked it. So now when the blinders come off after 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years, you're like, oh my God, where'd this come from? No, it was there. It was always there. You just, again,
You just missed it.
You confuse anxiety for butterflies, right? And it was always not that you can't fix it. I don't want to think that you can't fix those things.
Yeah.
But chances are you went outside the boundaries. And then when you went outside the boundaries, I saw some things, right? But it goes back to what I said before in the last segment is, what are you willing to die to now that I see it? Right? What are you willing to bury now that I see it? What are you willing to pray about and lay on the altar now that we see it? The worst thing, oh my God, thank you, God. The worst thing, if any, and I've used this in my own life. If you tell me this, if you use this statement, this is just how I am.
Because you can change that.
This is how I am. Which means that you accepted who you are. You're not pliable. That which means that you're telling me that I got to accept you and all your bad behaviors, and you're not willing to adjust, change. Then it was always there. Right.
The thing is, people have the right to be whoever they want to be, right? So when they say this is who I am, that's who you are. You have the right to be that, but I have the right to choose what I want to do with that.
Right.
So I'm gonna choose, if I don't like it, to bounce, right? And I'm gonna choose it. Maybe it's not a big deal, and I'll figure it out and figure out how to stay with that. But I definitely agree with you, Pastor James. I cannot tell y'all one thing that I don't like about my husband that was not always there. I really like. There is nothing that's new. There is nothing that's like, oh my God, I never like. What is this? Whatever it is, he's been that way. It's been inklings of that, or seeds of that, or it's been there. So I definitely agree with that. But here's another thing that
with those things, have you seen them diminish over time? Because
we change, right? We change. And that's the thing, being in a relationship with somebody who is willing to evolve, right? Yeah. Just because this is who I am, that doesn't mean that I can't grow and change and learn a new way, right? So absolutely. The other thing that I'll add is sometimes this happens is because we wear a mask entering into a relationship. Right. We don't show up in the relationship as our true, authentic selves because we're trying to be who that person wants us to be, or be who we think we need to be in order to have this relationship, because we want the relationship so badly. And so eventually that mask comes off.
Right.
Eventually you can't hide anymore. When we're not just dating and kicking it every once in a while, and we in the house and we in each other's face and it's all day, every day, your mask, it's gonna come off. And so
Right.
that mask comes off and you see the person and it's like, wait a minute.
Right.
Or
Right.
your needs aren't being met, but because your mask caused you to attract somebody else, they couldn't, you didn't attract the person that is truly for you because you weren't being you. So
Wow.
you attracted somebody that's attracted to that mask that you were wearing.
Right. Or they show up with their representative, right?
Yes.
At some point, you know, you got to replace your representative. You know, because at some point, you know, you laughing at their jokes, and all of a sudden their jokes no longer funny. Is because your representative is still there. You know, you have to replace that representative. It's okay to represent ourselves, you know, in a positive way in the beginning. But I really want to know who you are. Right? I want to be able to know, you know, what's on the inside of you. What's on the inside.
Yeah.
Somebody asked what to do if they chose not to change.
You have the right to make a decision.
Right. Right.
You have the right to, going back to Pastor James, you know, the word he's been saying several times, you have to have your boundaries.
Right.
So if you know that, let's say it is the way that somebody talks to you. If you know that, okay, I don't like being talked to in this way. I don't like this particular tone of voice. I don't like the aggression, or I don't like the gaslighting. You are expressing that and you're saying that, you know, you're setting that boundary, and that person is unwilling to change, then what do? Again, if you stay in that, then you continue to dishonor yourself.
Right.
You have the ability to, you have to walk away.
Right. And you know, the thing about it is, though, I promise you this, again, my beliefs are strong when it comes down to love. It is, because, like, you know, I always say this, and if you don't mind me being personal sometimes, I say you'll never know love until you have to shave your wife's head. And I say that in a sense that, you know what, if you're not willing to change, how can you truly be in love if you're not willing to adjust?
There you go. That part. You don't love me if you can't change for me.
You don't love me if you can't change.
If you can't address, like, yes. Right. And I said this to a client earlier today. You know, you leave me alone with my pain and refuse to be a part of my healing process. Right. How then can you say you love me? You hurt me, but you leave me alone with that? That's not love. Right. You don't want to change it, and you see that this action is inflicting harm on me. That's not love.
Right. And you know, the weird part about it is, you know, I say this: be to me who you are on your job. You know, because
I've heard that before.
I guarantee you expect a paycheck every other Friday. You're not gonna act a donkey at your job. Be who you are on your job to me, right? You're not gonna cuss nobody out. You're not gonna act bad. You're not gonna have that job very long. Bring that person at home, right? Wow. You know, don't look at you know. Don't look at the paycheck you're getting every 2 weeks that you got to present yourself in a certain kind of way, right? At our job, they tell us we got to work a certain kind of way, we got to operate a certain kind of way, we got to wear a certain uniform. You know what? And you're willing to do those things, but you're not willing to do those things because those same changes, those tangible things, and you say you love me, right? So you're telling me that you love the paycheck more than you love me as a person. You're willing to adjust money, but you're not willing to adjust your heart. My heart, you know, and like I said, it always comes out. They always, what they say, it comes out in the wash. Yeah, it comes out in the wash, right? It does. It really does.
Y'all, I also want to say that, you know, with this clip, because a lot of times, you know, we watch these clips and I don't know that we take the correct messages away from them.
Okay.
This clip was more so talking about them just kind of growing in different directions. There was not anything dangerous or harmful or toxic or unhealthy happening in a relationship. So let's be clear about that, right? Because this doesn't mean it became chaotic and dangerous and toxic and they and that's what they were dealing with. They just got to what I call a valley. And then when you've been married for a long time, you will, even it don't even take that long. You're gonna go through valleys. It is a part of it. And so what this couple is talking about is how they learn to work with each other through the valleys to get back up to the mountaintop, right? So they were willing to learn to talk, to communicate, to be vulnerable, to meet each other's needs, to change in the way that they needed to change. They were willing to do the hard work, because marriage is work.
Right.
So they were willing to do the hard. You hear me emphasizing that K, because it is work. It is.
Right.
You know, it is a constant wake up every day and a choice to work to make it, right? So that is what that couple is talking about. So don't get it confused, because a lot of times it's like, oh, I watched this video and they went through all this stuff and we connect that to like toxic stuff.
Right.
That's not what we're talking about here.
I love that one word. I love that one word, Ms. Jackson, is that willing. Man, you got to be willing. You have to be willing. You have to be willing. It starts with a will.
Yeah.
It starts with the desire to do things better. If you don't have the desire, I can't make you desire it.
Oh, look, that's what I tell the clients. All I need is you to be willing and open, and I got you.
That's it. I just need you to be willing. I can work on anything. I can work on anything when you're willing to do better and be better. I can stand with you, and I desire to be better. In that willing part, because some people really don't care, right?
That part.
You gotta be willing. Like I said, we have to. We have to, like you said, in the valley. But I'm willing. We still holding hands. I'm pulling you up the mountain, and guess what? I'm resting, and then you're gonna pull me up, and we're gonna rest, and I'm gonna pull you up some more. But I'm willing to pull you up, and you're willing to pull me up. Because guess what? We're gonna get to the top together, right? But you got to be willing to do that. You got to be. If you don't desire, I'm gonna be going up that mountain by myself, while I'm looking down, and you saying, "Nah, I'm not. I don't want to go up there. I'm staying in the valley." Because you're not willing to climb. You're just not willing to climb. I can deal with willing all day.
All day.
All day.
That's good, y'all. This conversation has been so good. I'm so sad that it's coming to a close, but I have one more question for y'all, right? Okay. I mean, I can ask y'all questions all day. This has been the best gumbo I've ever
really been a good conversation.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, it has. Okay, but what makes a marriage or a relationship last? That's the final question.
I think we just answered that question.
Right.
I feel like you're
willing.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Willing. I mean, that's the word. Stamp that, like that, share that.
Because disagreements are inevitable, right? Disagreements are inevitable. You can't don't go into a relationship jaded.
Well, how do we deal with disagreements? Let's end on that. How do we deal with disagreement?
Healthy communication and willingness to change.
Okay. And remember what I said in the beginning, it's not the conflict itself, it's how you respond to the conflict.
How.
Sometimes it becomes not less about the tallest seat, and then all of a sudden you argue about the tallest seat and you go, well, your mama, wait a minute, we talking about the tallest seat here. We're not talking about my mama and all that. No, let's stay focused, because it'll shift quick on you from the conflict and how to resolve it, like Jack said, communication, shifting from using the word you to I, or, to we.
Using I statements.
Using I statements, is just saying, I and me, and being sympathetic and sincere, watching your verbal, your nonverbal cues, your body language, all those things matter, and they have to be intentional. Right, they have to be intentional.
Mm-hmm. And use conflict as to be progressive in a relationship. I tell people all the time, conflict is not a bad thing. It can actually be really, really good, right? When I'm working with clients, I'm not looking at what y'all talking about, because as he's saying, you could be arguing about the toilet seat, you could be arguing about parenting. It's the how you have that conflict, right? So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to help couples fix the how they're having the conflict. But yeah, you have to be willing to, again, communicate. You have to communicate honestly and authentically. You have to be willing to be open-minded, hear the other person's perspective. All of that is a part of working through through conflict. And like I said, conflict is a good thing. If me and you are having, let's say, Angela, you and I have a disagreement about something, it may be based on something I don't even know about you, right? It may be, I may be tapping on a trigger that I don't even know. I might have opened a wound that I'm not aware of, or I may have unintentionally hurt you, right?
Yeah.
If you and I can talk about that, guess what? I learned something about you.
Right.
Yeah.
I've learned how to treat you another way that you need to be treated. I've learned how to be tender with you, right? So moving forward, I know that Angela don't like Phyllis to be late. Or
Right.
Angela, or whatever the case is, right? Like Angela really needs, me to contact her when she's upset. She doesn't need, a long time. Or Angela really needs me to reach out to her more, or whatever it is, right? I get to learn. So conflict is informative if you do it in the right way.
Right. That's good. I like that.
Ooh, that
That's
was
good.
so
Again,
good.
it's all sometimes it's never about the toilet seat. It's just how you told me about the toilet seat.
It is how you say what you say.
How you say what you said. How you said it to me. Like you said, and you could say something to someone and it just triggered them. Based off their childhood. Maybe they had a yelling parent, right? And then when I yell at you, you triggering me. So guess what? What you're yelling at me about is not even about what you're yelling at me about. It's about the fact that you yelled at me. Right. And it's a trigger because guess what I heard, you have parents that fought, right? So when you come at me, sometimes I'm like, oh, because I'm triggered behind it. So, you have to just be willing to adjust. Like if love don't make you adjust, I'm not sure what will.
Well, that's another way you know what love is, if it's love or infatuation. Because if it's love, I'm willing to adjust.
Right.
Y'all, I just cannot. I'm trying to sum up the conversation, but so many great things were said tonight. I want to thank you both for your yes. It turned out even better than I expected. I knew it was going to be a good conversation, but we cooked some good gumbo tonight.
Right. I took notes.
Me too.
How do you be a guest on the show and you walking away with notes?
Look, I got my paper and my pen right here. Y'all saw me lean over. I was like, wait a minute, let me write some stuff down. Yeah.
Notes. Look, tomorrow's my last day for this semester, man. I got some stuff I need to, write down. So I appreciate it. I really do.
Thank you. Thank you. That was the purpose of this live, is to explore different topics during this month of mental health awareness. Tonight, we talked about relationships and marriage. Coming up on Saturday, y'all, I'm rolling. I'm doing 2 segments a week. Who told me to do it? But I have to do it. There are a lot of topics that we have to touch down on. And coming up on this Saturday, I have my family, my friends, DC Cross and Alicia Francis of Turnaround Coaching and Mentoring Services, LLC. And what are we talking about? We're talking about depression in men and women.
Oh, wow.
So that's going to be a good one, y'all. Good. Again, I want to thank y'all. You can connect with Phyllis here on IG at Therapy with Phyllis. You can book her for sessions, healing-harmony.org. Y'all, she dropped so many gems. She knows what she's doing. She has the experience. If you need marital counseling, marriage, couples, and families, she's available for you. Listen, but the amazing thing tonight, both of your values align. Even though you're different, you're so similar, right? And then we have Pastor James Simmons, MLA, PMC, CSM. And I know he's building some things. He's going to have a website up soon, but you can email him at pastorj@dccwc.org. And listen, y'all heard it. He knows what he's talking about as well. What a wealth of information tonight. I am so honored that you both gave me your yes. Listen, cousin, you're not going nowhere. And sis, I'm so proud of all the great things you're doing. Y'all, thank you,
Angela.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
Of course. Thank y'all for tuning in. And look, stay tuned. I have so many other guests this month. But for now, we'll see you later.
Bye.